Good evening, and I apologize for running a few minutes behind schedule. We had some people coming in late, and I thought it more appropriate to just sit for 5 than to interrupt the program tonight, so I apologize to that, but if you want to blame someone, throw it at me. It certainly is my honor to host the 108th annual meeting of the Manufacturers Association. Thank you for joining us this evening as we present a program filled with entertainment and education. Let us now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads. We ask you, God, to bless this gathering, which is a meeting of people who earnestly desire to do their work in the best possible way, to strengthen their community, to advance the art and science of their profession, and to leave their children a better world. Please give us the wisdom and vision to plan adequately and the strength and determination to act correctly to achieve these ends. Amen. Please be seated. It is now my pleasure to introduce Evan Brooks. Evan is a senior at Spring Grove High School, where he is a part of the vocal ensembles and many other extracurricular activities. He most recently appeared in the lead role of Willy Wonka in his school's production. Evan will be attending Muhlenberg College in the fall, majoring in theater. He will be accompanied by Mrs. Jackie Sutton.
Spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Evan and Jackie, and on behalf of the Manufacturers Association, please accept these gifts of appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, Evan Brooks and Jackie Sutton. Once again, welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight's program is about us, the 316 million people and 7.3 million businesses in America, the 12.7 million people and 295,000 businesses in Pennsylvania, and the 2.3 million people and 50,000 businesses in South Central Pennsylvania. It's about us and our responsibility to promote America's values. While each of us would likely disagree on the entire list, I'm confident that two common values would be individualism and equality. A third value, certainly high on the list at the Manufacturers Association, is determined leadership. Celebrating our 108th year tonight provides us the opportunity to reflect on our history and the values that have guided our work. And now the us becomes I. As you watch this short video, I challenge you to think about the three values: individualism, equality, and leadership. Have I? Am I? Will I stand strong with my fellow community members to ensure the us have the same opportunities for success that you have had? Please play the video.
Hi, my name's John Lebo, the incoming president of the Manufacturers Association here in York, Pennsylvania. I'd like to take this time to welcome you to the 108th annual meeting of the Manufacturers Association. I'd like to extend a special thanks to our sponsors and all those in attendance for making this a great event. Please take advantage of our educational training facilities here in the York, Pennsylvania area to improve your workforce. And again, thank you for attending. From its early days in 1906, the Manufacturers Association has evolved into an organization that delivers proven solutions to its members in manufacturing and related businesses. Setting the standard for pursuing progressive directions in both community and economic development and initiatives, the association was the creation of early 20th century business visionaries. Leaders like Forey Laux, head of the world-renowned York Safe and Lock Company, A.B. Farquhar, manufacturing steam engines and farm equipment, and the preeminent Falsgraf family who made their name synonymous with quality pottery products. The S. Morgan Smith Company carved out a reputation for production of heavy machinery, and Elsner Engineering Works, an internationally respected manufacturer of converting and packaging equipment. These and others are evident in our local commerce today. A speech by President Farquhar on December 3, 1909 set forth tenets that are still viable. The fourth year since our organization has very nearly elapsed. Our success has been due to the fact that we allow no one interest to dominate, no cliques to form, no selfish ends to prevail. We have not sought and will never seek to stifle competition. Through the years, our association's accomplishments have been noteworthy with enduring positive impact. In 1908, we argued for the completion of a public sewer system and paved roads in the city of York. A successful lawsuit was lodged against the Pennsylvania Railroad to stop gouging practices of York shippers in 1922. During World War II, we scripted the York Plan. Do what you can with what you have to subsist with limited resources. Our president in 1974, Frank Motter, offered a prophetic course for our organization. It is during these periods of change that our Manufacturers Association can be of great assistance to each of us by supplying a background of information upon which we can make our decisions. Training foremen in the latest techniques of supervision could be an expensive proposition, but again, our association makes it easy. The work of our association in the world of community service gives us all a chance through committee participation to make York County a better place to work and live. And as recently as 2009, if you ever wondered what happened to the Employee Free Choice Act, following a meeting between association members and Senator Specter at the Yorktown Hotel, the senator returned to Washington as the swing vote and voted no. While we remind you of our past accomplishments, we are still hard at work for the membership and community today. We maintain one of the largest multi-employer manufacturing apprenticeship programs in the nation. Here, hundreds of individuals, both young and old, are receiving technical training each year, raising their value as quality employees. Our talent management team is proactively helping employers and job seekers find each other. Now in its third year of operation, our web-based job center has over 1,000 resumes and an online searchable database where hundreds of employers now find and match local talent to current job openings. We offer a venue in which members increase their visibility in South Central PA, joining hundreds of business contacts at regional business networking mixers. This is where the elite meet and everyone else is welcome too. Health insurance and other benefit solutions improve the quality of life for thousands of employees through our Employers Health Insurance Trust. We have been true to our motto, building on the past, focused on the future, words that are integral to our current and future efforts. We resolve to recruit and train the future workforce as demanded by our membership, provide health insurance and related benefit options, offer recruiting and placement services to our customers, and we will be the business leadership leader. Our proud past is a record of what can be achieved by well-directed work, energy, and brains. Our present shows a prosperity hard to be rivaled. Our future is in our control, and we have our members to thank for making this possible, and thank our sponsors of your 108th annual meeting.
So many well-deserved thank yous. Our staff and board of directors, our members and clients, our friends and partners, Penn State, Rooftop Productions, Artistic Catering, the sponsors of this great event, thank you. The team that put this event together, led by Gene Ream, Amanda Davidson, and Bernie Tucker. Our staff and dozens of volunteers, thank you. A special thanks to Dayspring Christian Academy. And if somebody wants to know the details behind that, talk to me afterwards. A brief update on our business. Last year I mentioned that we should shorten our name, and we have. We are now the Manufacturers Association. That's it, plain and simple. Let me take a moment and share with you some of the other exciting things occurring in our world. Health insurance, maybe why many of you are here tonight. While we work with Congress to seek improvements to the Affordable Care Act, we are rebuilding our entire health insurance program. I'm pleased to announce 2 new relationships tonight. The first is Mercer Health and Benefits. Mercer is a global leader in talent, health, retirement, and investments. Mercer has built a private exchange and associated products that will enable employers to manage their costs, simplify plan administration, and offer employees and retirees a range of benefits to meet their needs. The second announcement is Jones Benefits Consulting. Our work with Peter Jones and his team will focus on an emerging market of voluntary benefit options for employers and individuals. Certainly more to come from this segment of our business. Let's talk a bit about workforce development. The leading issue common among business leaders everywhere. This is our plan. 3 years ago, we told you that we were launching a career awareness campaign, and we have. I Explore Manufacturing Careers. The I Explore Manufacturing Careers website began in July 2012 in South Central Pennsylvania. This alliance remains committed to developing a collaborative environment with parents and educators to achieve mutual goals of creating awareness, interest, and ultimately increase numbers of well-qualified students who will pursue manufacturing careers. Today, 21 school districts are utilizing this effort to enhance student awareness of technical careers. 2 years ago, we opened the Manufacturing Training Center, where today dozens of young and old, seasoned manufacturing veterans and high school students are learning basic and advanced manufacturing skills in an apprenticeship program. Last year, we told you about an innovation resource network, a place where individuals and businesses could go to share ideas and assist each other with new technology. The association is a proud supporter of Innovative X, a virtual meeting place where inventors and others come together. So what's next? The Manufacturers Association is partnering with a local venture capital firm, the York Innovators Group, and is supporting the creation of a research and development center in York. The center will be a combination, small business development area and product development center. When you hear the phrase workforce development, you need to look no further than the Manufacturers Association, a resource to recruit and hire the right people, a resource to train your existing workforce, a resource that is committed to developing the next generation of employees, and a resource that has brought together economic development and workforce development to strengthen the community. Our relationship with those in the political and policy fray is stronger and better than ever. The association prides itself in working with all sides of the political equation to find reasonable, comprehensive solutions. But our voice is only as strong as those behind us. We need your support. I probably know better than most how painful and unwise the political process can be. Spending ourselves into prosperity, punishing job creators with dumbfounded regulations, a total lack of strategic planning with our future are just a few characteristics of the current political environment. This is all so frustrating for those of us who have placed our trust in the system. Doing nothing is not an option, and I encourage all of us to remain vigilant as we fight to rein in misguided political ideas. As we look forward, I anticipate some exciting additions to our current work. We will strengthen our position as the choice resource for workforce development programs. We will work towards creating a research and development center, and we will rebuild our team with a broader perspective on employer-employee benefit options. In conclusion, I want you to know that the Manufacturers Association continues to be your #1 advocate and resource as we work together to grow and build a stronger community. If you remember nothing else about this evening, please remember that the association has a sincere passion to make sure that the economies in South Central Pennsylvania remain strong and vibrant, providing job opportunities that enable businesses, individuals, families, and communities the chance to succeed. Inside each program is a membership application for the Manufacturers Association. If your company is not a member, I'm asking that you consider supporting this organization that is working for you. It is now my honor to introduce the President of the Board of the Manufacturers Association and owner of Tucker Industrial Liquid Coatings, Mr. Bernie Tucker. Tonight is the end of Bernie's tenure as President of the Association, and I want to say thank you for a job well done. Bernie?
Good evening. I would like to add my welcome to everyone tonight to this evening's event, and a special thanks to the sponsors making this annual event a 100% sellout. I would like to reflect with you for a moment on the Manufacturers Association and why I am so proud to be involved. Successful communities are a gathering of people who develop a sense of pride and ownership for their cause. A community can be a reason or common interest. All communities require economic activity to further their mission. The Manufacturers Association is a community of business interest committed to long-term economic success for individuals and businesses throughout South Central Pennsylvania and beyond. A measure of value of any organization is its outcome. Mike spoke about the training center and other productive outcomes. Apprenticeship classes started in November of 2012 and moved to the new training center in January 2013. The official open house was held March 27th, 2013. We have run 2 years of apprenticeship classes with 152 students over 2 years. The total students in class held at the training center is 236. Just a few of the training classes offered are machining, CNC, industrial electronics, control logic, PLC, tool and die, welding. Apprentice students take 4 to 5 classes each year. So the 75 students each take 4 classes over the years. So if our math is right, 75 times 4 equals 300 different educational experiences each year. Additional soft skills are offered, such as OSHA, leadership skills, employee retention, just to name a few. Our Manufacturing Association continues to be a leader in supplying training for manufacturers and related supporting businesses in Central PA. We are constantly striving and surveying the landscape for state and federal grants, opportunities to reduce the cost of ranging from apprenticeship programs, Microsoft projects through enhancing supervisory and management skills. We are committed to providing the best education opportunities at the lowest possible cost to you. We continue to receive feedback from our members on our human resource activities coordinated by Jim Baker. In addition to providing placement services focused in the manufacturing arena, Jim frequently surveys our members on critical issues to our members and shares those results with the members. Jim also provides frequent email blasts with changes occurring in Harrisburg and Washington, which are likely to impact businesses, with a brief overview and links with detailed information on those subjects. Bringing real value to our members and our community is the heart and core competency of the Manufacturers Association. I would like to focus on you. In my time with the association, the thing that I am most impressed with is the participation and passion of you and your employees. What makes the association successful? The 75 employees who give up their evenings 5 years to apprenticeship training, bettering their lives. The countless hours spent in membership meetings and networking sessions. Our board of directors, an incredible group of volunteers who work tirelessly to support the association. The elected representatives and political staff who work with the association to build a positive future. While my time as president of the association ends tonight, I can say without hesitation that you have impressed me with your commitment to building a community where future generations can thrive. In closing, I'd like to thank the staff. Mike Smeltzer, our Executive Director, Tammy Marcus, Director of Education and Training, Dana Dehoff, Director of Membership and Member Services, Jim Baker, Senior Consultant for Talent Management, Deb Peregrine and Stephanie Feynman for administrative assistants and taskmasters as needed. the board, and all of the opportunity to be part of the successful venture we call the Manufacturers Association. And I strongly encourage each of you to get involved as we continue the mission to achieve economic excellence. Thank you.
As Bernie mentioned, tonight ends his tenure as our president, and I want to thank him for his leadership and active support of the association. The association is a better organization as a result of your work.
Thank you.
On behalf of the board of directors and staff, I am pleased to present this plaque to Bernie.
Thank you. Good, appreciate it. You want me to read up here?
Why don't you stay in the back? It is now my pleasure to introduce John Lebo. John's already a star. He was the voice on the video. John is president of Doucette Industries, and John is the incoming president of the Manufacturers Association. John?
Thank you, Mike. And also a great thanks to Bernie. His are big shoes to fill. Having been involved with the association for a number of years has provided me great insight into an organization that works to serve its community to build a bright future. In Mike's opening comments, he spoke of the value of determined leadership. What a great way to describe our work here. Not always a popularity contest, but consistent with our values. I am excited about our future and look forward to my 2 years as president. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We now have an obligation to identify the next vice president of the Manufacturers Association. With unanimous recommendation from our board of directors, I am presenting the president of New Concept Technologies, Tom Bachman, for your consideration. Could I have a motion to approve Tom's appointment? Thank you, Greg. And a second? Thanks, Jack. How did I know it was Jack? Oh, it's written here. Thank you, and congratulations, Tom. You got to script some of these things. All communities are made up of individuals and businesses working together to create an environment where families can live, work, and play. The Manufacturers Association is proud to recognize a few of those making a positive difference with our annual awards. The first award is Manufacturer of the Year. It certainly is an honor each year to recognize a local company that is doing great things. Schindler Elevator Company, more than 5,000 employees providing products and services that move 1 billion people every day. Headquartered in Morristown, New Jersey, Schindler is the world's second largest elevator company and the world's largest escalator supplier. On February 25, 2014, the association was pleased to participate in the grand opening of Schindler's state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Hanover, Pennsylvania. The facility is the first North American elevator manufacturing facility to earn the designation of LEED Gold. Please join me in welcoming John Impellizzeri, who is accepting the award for the company. John?
Thanks very much.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Appreciate it.
John.
Thanks very much. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'm certainly delighted tonight to accept this honor on behalf of Schindler. And I'd really like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Manufacturers Association. Thank you, Mike. You have been with us every step of the way, providing valuable insights, support, and often very needed guidance. I'd also like to recognize our project team who brought this vision to a reality. Several of them are with me here tonight. But in particular, I would like to thank Dave Thomas and as well Dave Michaels for your unceasing dedication and commitment. This team employed on a daily basis a life principle that was espoused by Dr. Carson, and it's namely this: that success is determined not by whether or not you face obstacles, but by how you react to them. And these leaders chose on a daily basis to not let obstacles become excuses, but rather they saw them as opportunities for personal growth and development. I'd also like to thank the many strategic vendors that we have in this area for their support, as well as local, county, and state officials. And last and certainly not least, I need to thank all our employees at the Hanover facility who make this the best Schindler facility in the world. As Mike mentioned, we are very proud to be a LEED certified, gold certified facility from the U.S. Green Building Council. This plant serves as a model for sustainability for future Schindler plants and indeed for any factory in our industry. Schindler was founded over 140 years ago in 1874 and has 48,000 employees all over the world in more than 100 countries. As Mike mentioned, we safely move 1 billion people every day on our elevators, escalators, and moving walks, and this Hanover facility, in fact, helps us to do just that. Thank you all again for this prestigious honor.
The second award is the Educator of the Year. The association maintains a strong position for an education process where every student has the opportunity to attain the highest quality education, preserving their individual values. Gettysburg Area School District. The Gettysburg Area School District, in partnership with the family and community, is dedicated to excellence and committed to maximizing every student's achievement. We strive, they strive, to provide a safe and healthy environment in which all students can learn. We embrace our responsibility in developing a caring school community that enables all students to become active and productive members of our diverse and ever-changing society. Behind every good idea is a good person, and it is our pleasure to recognize Jim Kramer, Career and Technical Education Director, as our Educator of the Year. Jim?
First, a heartfelt thank you to the Manufacturers Association for honoring me with this award. My career's had many twists and turns in the last 9 years as Director of Career Tech Ed for Adams County and Gettysburg High School have provided some great rewards. As I thought about something to share with you this evening, I considered my heroes, my mentors, and many others, and I've had many people I've looked up to in the past, just like everyone else in the room tonight. However, I've determined that my most recent heroes are the students. They're the kids that I say connect the dots. I'm referring to a culinary student who recognizes why basic math is important when following a recipe. A building trade student who suddenly realizes why geometry is important when calculating the measurements of a roof truss. Diesel mechanic student who understands why the metric system is critical knowledge when using a micrometer to measure an engine component. And also a student in health careers who recognizes the importance of honesty and integrity by following the rules outlined in HIPAA regulations. Students are my heroes. Through their efforts and hard work, they find meaning in school and life-fulfilling opportunities in our community. I'd like to recognize some folks with me here this evening. First of all, Dr. Larry Redding and his wife Janet. Larry is the superintendent at Gettysburg School District, without whose support none of what I do would be possible. Also recognize my daughter Elizabeth and future son-in-law Daniel Veronkoff, who are here with me this evening. And finally, behind every successful man, there's a woman pushing him along. My wife Diane and I celebrated our 41st anniversary on Monday, April 21st, and I can say without reservation that without Diane's support and constant encouragement, I would not be sharing these comments with you this evening. You honor me. Thank you very much.
Our final award is Workforce Professional of the Year. In each of our communities, there are individuals who just get it done. We rarely see them. We don't know their names, but we see the results of their work. In this region, there are thousands of youth, ages 16 to 24, that are in need of guidance regarding career and job readiness. The United States Department of Labor spends billions of dollars each year to provide service to this population. In this region, the work is contracted through the South Central Workforce Investment Board. Our workforce professional this year is Doran Condon, Manager of Youth Programs. Doran?
Thank you. And I have to tell you, it's awesome to be here tonight, to be able to stand in front of you and accept this award. I'll never forget the day that Mike called me. I actually thought he was punking me at first, and I didn't take the call seriously. And on my way home that night, I really reflected on how many people could actually be up here accepting this award. So I do have to really thank the Manufacturers Association and Mike for presenting me with this award. I really do appreciate it. I also have to thank all of my colleagues, and many of them are here in the audience this evening. And most of all, especially my coworkers who have to put up with me every day. Currently, our system, as Mike was describing briefly earlier, is able to serve over 1,200 youth in our 8-county area. And without those opportunities, we specialize in socioeconomic disadvantaged youth. And without those opportunities, those youth would not have their dreams filled of even graduating high school, attending college, and even considered a job that would pay more than minimum wage. The Manufacturers Association, my colleagues, and my coworkers are on a mission to prepare our region's youth for the workplace of tomorrow. We want to create opportunities for all of our youth who want to belong to our community and stay here and work in South Central Pennsylvania. Despite our efforts, many are still unaware of the opportunities that do exist right here at our fingertips. We can certainly use more people like yourselves and businesses to help educate our youth on those exact opportunities. And whether you think you can do a little bit or a lot, all I ask is that you get in contact with us, and we will welcome the opportunity for you to participate. Thanks again.
Yeah, you guys are done. Barney, you're really done. You're out. You're out. It is now my pleasure to mention several students' names who are demonstrating leadership in their community by pursuing positive academic and career development. Too often when STEM is discussed in education, that science, technology, engineering, and math, the most important letter is forgotten. The letter A, application. That's why tonight I want to mention students who are learning A-STEM, how to apply science, technology, engineering, math towards a career. I think you all know each year we support the York County Science Fair, and we're pleased to do that again tonight. And I'd like to mention the names of 3 award winners from this year's Science Fair. The first is from Central York. The name is Alexander Leistreitzer. The second student from Dallastown, Caitlin Salado. And the third from Red Lion, Alec The Manufacturers Association will be contributing $4,000 to enable these 3 students to participate in a national science event in Los Angeles. We also want to recognize students from Central York High School who are participating in the Advanced Manufacturing Pre-Apprenticeship Program. In addition to studying for their manufacturing credential, these 5 students are spending time in an after-school program, I did say after-school program, in our training center, learning basic machine technology. As I announce your name, please stand. Brandon Delgado, Daniel Gonzalez, Chad Lark, Zachary Morgan, and Luke Shupp. A round of applause, please. It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. Benjamin S. Carson, Sr., MD, is Professor Emeritus of Neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins University. Prior to his retirement in June 2013, after more than 40 years of medical endeavors, he serves as a full professor of neurosurgery, oncology, plastic surgery, and pediatrics at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. He directed pediatric neurosurgery at the Johns Hopkins Children's Center for over a quarter of a century. In May 2008, he became the inaugural recipient of a professorship dedicated in his name, the Benjamin S. Carson Sr., MD, and Dr. Evelyn Spiro, RN, Professor of Pediatric Neurosurgery. Among his many accomplishments, Dr. Carson was the first surgeon to successfully perform separation of craniopagus Siamese twins joined at the back of the head in 1987. He was also the first to complete a successful separation of type 2 vertical craniopagus twins in 1997 in South Africa, and he performed the first successful placement of an intrauterine shunt for a hydrocephalic twin. Dr. Carson holds more than 60 honorary doctorate degrees. He is a member of the Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Medical Society, the Institute of Medicine, the Horatio Alger Society of Distinguished Americans, and many other prestigious organizations. In June 2008, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Bush, which is the highest civilian honor in the land. He has literally received hundreds of other awards during his distinguished career. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ben Carson.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here, not too far from my former home in Baltimore. It's nice to be in close proximity because yesterday I was in Mississippi, and tomorrow I'll be in Michigan, and the day after that in Ohio, and the day after that in California, and then Seattle, and then Indianapolis, and then Wisconsin, and then I forgot after that. But you know, the interesting thing is in traveling all over this nation, red states, blue states, north, south, east, west, what is really very encouraging is the incredibly large, enthusiastic groups of people who seem to be coming out and saying, you mean I'm not the only one with common sense? You mean there's somebody else who has common sense? It seems like something that has been lost in our society. And the fact of the matter is, there's plenty of common sense in our country still. It's just a matter of people being willing to stand up for what they believe in and not let somebody else dictate what they're supposed to believe in. And really, that's what America is all about. And, you know, it's still a land of dreams. You know, for me, it was medicine as a youngster. I loved anything that had to do with medicine. and it was my dream. And were there obstacles along the way? Of course there are. There are always obstacles along the way. But I remember when I got into medical school, I was convinced that all the obstacles were gone. And finally, it was going to be okay. But I did poorly on the first set of comprehensive exams. And I was sent to see my counselor. And he looked at my record. He says, "You seem like a very intelligent young man. I bet there are a lot of things you could do outside of medicine." And he tried to convince me to drop out of medical school. He says, "You're not cut out for medicine. You're just going to torment yourself and everybody else. And it would probably just be good for you to leave, and we can get you into another area of the university." Which seems like a kind thing to say, but it really wasn't. I mean, it's the only thing I ever wanted to do since I was 8 years old. And I finally get there, and the person at the university chooses to help you get through tells you to drop out. I was devastated. And I went back to my apartment, and I just prayed. I said, "Lord, you got to help me figure this out. I always thought you wanted me to be a doctor." And I started thinking, what kind of courses have you always excelled in, and what kind of courses have you struggled in? And I realized that I excelled in courses where I did a lot of reading, and I struggled in courses where I listened to a lot of boring lectures. Because I don't get anything out of boring lectures. Some people do, but I get nothing out of boring lectures at all. And there I was spending 6 to 8 hours a day listening to boring lectures. So I made an executive decision to skip the boring lectures and to spend that time reading. And the rest of medical school was a snap after that. And some years later, when I came back to my medical school as the commencement speaker, I was looking for that counselor, because I was going to tell him he wasn't cut out to be a counselor. But because, you know, some people are just negative. They only have negative things to say, and they're never encouraging of people. It's always why you can't do something. And, you know, that is something that we need to suppress in our society. Everybody has a sphere of influence. Everybody has the ability to be a mentor to somebody. And investing just a little bit of time in trying to analyze what are their positives. What are the things that can be developed in a positive way to make them effective? And what an incredible difference that will make in what happens in our country. Well, you know, medicine was such a privilege. And, you know, when I retired last year, I thought that I was going to get to relax, but that hadn't happened. But I still get to see a lot of my patients, because I operated on about 15,000 people. And so almost virtually any place I go, I see some of my patients or somebody who's related to some of my patients. And it really is a wonderful feeling. But, you know, you get an opportunity in the medical profession to be involved in the most important thing a person has. I remember as an intern when I would go at Johns Hopkins and I'd walk on those wards and I would see all of these people. Very important people, the CEO of this organization, president of this organization, crown prince, queen of this nation, in many cases dying of some horrible disease. And every single one of them would have gladly given every penny and every title for a clean bill of health. And you begin to realize how important your health is. I mean, if you woke up tomorrow and there was a telegram saying you had just inherited $5 billion, you would say, wow, this is great. Just changes my life. Everything's going to be cool. And then you get another telegram right after that that says you have a metastatic tumor and you have 3 months to live. $5 billion all of a sudden doesn't mean very much. The time on your life means everything. And that's why you've heard me so often railing against a medical system that takes the very most important thing that you have, your health, and puts it in the hands of a government bureaucrat. I just think that that's a problem. And that's why, you know, I've railed against it, and I've tried to get people to understand that I, too, would love for everyone in the nation to have good health care coverage. And in a little while, I'll tell you exactly how that can happen. But it should be in the hands of the people themselves. And one of the concepts in the creation of this nation was to have people able to control their own lives, to be in charge of what was happening and which way they were going, to be able to pursue happiness with minimum interference from government or other people, as long as they were not infringing upon the rights of others. And I think as a nation, we've grown so accustomed, and it's been very gradual, to relinquishing control over our own lives that we don't even notice a lot of it when it occurs. But I think we're in the process of solving that. Now, before I go on, I must make one slight disclaimer, and that is, I am not politically correct. So, it is possible. It is possible. It is possible that I may say something that offends someone. Now, it was not my intention to do that, but it's just that these days people are so sensitive. And really, I think the emphasis should not be on shutting people up. The emphasis should be on developing a thicker hide so that people are not offended by everything. And there are those who are out there always stirring the pot. Did you hear what he said? You should be offended about that. Oh, okay. Yeah, I should be offended. Okay. Yeah. Why did he say such a thing? You know, I mean, it is just so absurd what we have become. When I was a kid, there was a very common saying, sticks and stones break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I don't think the kids even know that anymore. You know, it's everybody has become so sensitive. And we have to get over that, because it's a tool that's used to divide people. If you can keep people at each other's throats and concerned about things that really don't matter, they will totally miss the boat on the things that are important. And if you want to bring a society down, that's what you do. A wise man by the name of Jesus Christ once said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And the United States of America is by far the most powerful nation the world has ever seen. It was the wealthiest nation also. And there are those who were very interested in bringing the United States down to a level with everybody else. It's easy to find the literature on this, Marxist and neo-Marxist literature. But it indicates that it is necessary in order to bring the United States under subjugation, that you have to break its most powerful pillars, and that is the family structure and their Judeo-Christian belief system. And if you can bring those things under control, then you can definitely knock the people down. And if you can make the people dependent, then you can definitely bring the United States down. And I encourage people to read those things so that they understand what's going on. There's a book called The Naked Communist, written in 1958 by Leon Schussen, which outlines back in 1958, it outlines everything that's going on today and the whole plan and how it was to roll out. And I must give the secular progressives their due, because they have been very effective in bringing about the kind of change that they wanted to in this nation. However, it's not too late to reclaim what America was supposed to be. And one of the things that we, the people, have to recognize is that we are not each other's enemies. The enemies are the people who are trying to divide us up into little groups. That's why you find a war on everything. A war on women, age wars, race wars, income wars, any kind of crack. A wedge is driven into it and making people think that others are their enemies. And I have to tell you, it's okay to have a disagreement with somebody. It doesn't make them your enemy. You still have a lot more in common than you have apart. You actually can learn a lot more from discussing something with somebody who disagrees with you than for somebody who agrees with you all the time. And I always say, if two people agree about everything, one of them isn't necessary. You know, and it's actually a good thing for us to be able to have civil discussions rather than to get off into corners and lob hand grenades at each other. And I'll say a bit more about that, but just how important it is for us to be willing to stand up for what we believe in. Because if we're not willing to stand up, if we're afraid that somebody's going to call us a name, if we're afraid that we're going to get audited, then the secular progressives win by default. So that's a very important thing to bear in mind. Well, at any rate, you know, there were a lot of problems with me realizing my dreams of becoming a doctor. You know, not the least of which occurred because my parents got divorced early on. That to me was devastating. I was always praying that they would get back together. You know, my mother was one of 24 children. And she got married at age 13. And she and my father moved from rural Tennessee to Detroit. And he was a factory worker. And some years later, she discovered he was a bigamist, had another family. And I remember telling that story at a graduation at the University of Utah. Nobody thought it was that strange. Well, I told you I was politically incorrect. Now, of course, everybody knows they don't do that in Utah anymore. But that occasioned a divorce, and you know, we ended up moving from Detroit to Boston, and living with my mother's older sister and brother-in-law. Typical tenement, large multi-family dwelling, boarded up windows and doors, sirens, gangs, murders. Both of my older cousins, who we adored, were killed. And I just remember as a youngster, one of the things that I hated so much was poverty. You know, some people hate snakes and roaches and snails. I hated poverty. I just was absolutely certain that there was some mistake and that I was supposed to have been born under different circumstances. But there I was stuck in it. And, you know, my mother, I think, also didn't like it very much, but she only had a third-grade education. And she worked extremely hard, would leave at 5 in the morning, get back after midnight, day after day after day. Because she didn't like welfare. Occasionally she would have to accept food stamps, but she was always trying to stay out of that situation because she was very observant, and she noticed that no one she ever saw who lived on welfare got off of it. And she just didn't want that lifestyle for herself, and she didn't want it for us. And she would never accept being a victim, no matter what anybody else said. And she never felt sorry for herself, which was a good thing. The problem is she never felt sorry for us either. So there was never any excuse that we could give that was acceptable. She would always say, "Do you have a brain?" And if the answer to that was yes, then you could have thought your way out of it. But it was really about accepting responsibility, teaching us as youngsters the importance of accepting responsibility. And, she was incredibly thrifty, saved every penny, taught us to be the same way. We would get bus tokens. She would say, "Don't use the bus tokens, save them up, and ride your bikes to school." So we were always riding our bikes. Some people teased us about it, but it was okay because we would save all those tokens and you could turn them in and get money. And she would take us out in the country on a Sunday morning. We'd knock on a farmer's door. And she would say, "Can we pick 4 bushels of your apples or your beans or your corn? 3 for you and 1 for us." They always liked that deal. And then she would bring it home and she would can it. And then she'd go to the Goodwill and get a shirt that had a big hole in the sleeve and buy 2 patches and put 1 on each sleeve. And people would say, "Where'd you get that shirt? I want one like it." She was always doing these kinds of things. She would sew. She could sew clothing for herself and clothing that she sold to other people by just acquiring skills along the way. And it made a tremendous impact. But her real goal was to be able to move back to Detroit if she worked long enough and hard enough. And after a while, we were, in fact, able to do that. And I was in the 5th grade, and I was a terrible student in the 5th grade. Probably the worst you've ever seen. I thought I was really, really stupid. And all of my classmates agreed with that assessment, and so did the teachers. And they always teased me, and I was the butt of all the jokes. But I was particularly good at one thing, and that was getting other people kicked out of class. I was an expert at that. And that's how I would get back at my classmates. I would figure out what made them really, really angry. And then I would just irritate them until they were about to explode. But I would never push the last button to make them explode until we were in class and the teacher was nearby. And then I would do it, they would explode, the teacher would kick them out. I would say, "Yeah, this is great," because I wouldn't be the only person who didn't learn anything that day. But there was this one girl in class. You all know this girl, Miss Goody Two-Shoes. Some of you probably her. I mean, everything perfect, pristine, on time, made everybody else look like a total jerk. And I said, "Wow, wouldn't it be great to get her kicked out of class?" There was only one problem. She was cool, calm, collected. You couldn't get under her skin. But I was persistent. And I kept it up until I figured out what it was that made her angry. And let me tell you, the steam was coming out of her ears. She was about to explode, but I didn't push the last button. I waited till we were in class. Lo and behold, she sat right down in the seat in front of me. I said, "The Lord is good." And as the teacher approached, I started irritating her. I pushed the last button, but she didn't explode. She just quietly turned around and said, "You and me on the playground at recess." So that didn't work out all that well. I became a brain surgeon and she became a professional wrestler. But I did stop bothering people. But the kind of student that I was reminds me of a lot of students that I encounter these days who really don't have a great depth of knowledge. And some people say, "Well, you don't really need that these days because everybody's got a smartphone and you can look up everything you need to know." That's not true. Because when someone is talking to you or you're listening to the television or the radio, you are processing the information that is coming to you based on what you already know. And if you're very knowledgeable, you have much better processing skills than somebody who has very little information. Unfortunately, the same is true of adults. And this is a huge problem in America today. There are many adults who know more about who's on Dancing with the Stars and who's playing in the football game or the hockey game than they know about important things. A large number of Americans, when they go to vote, they go into that voting booth, they're looking for a D, an R, or a name that looks familiar. The name could be Satan. They would say, oh yeah, I recognize that name. In some cases, it's worse than Satan. And but they have no way to process this. And they're making decisions on asinine factors. And it's not being responsible. And it's one of the reasons that our nation is in the trouble that it is in now. And it's so important that we change that. The people who founded this nation said our system is based upon a well-informed and educated populace. And if we ever become anything other than that, the nature of the nation will change. Why did they say that? Because they knew that if people were not well informed, it would be so easy to manipulate them. Dishonest politicians, dishonest news media, very easy time manipulating people like that. And I love to challenge audiences to do this one thing. It's not a difficult thing to do, but it will have a profound effect on the future of our nation. Promise yourself that you will spend a half an hour every day for the next year learning something new. Just a half an hour. Get an algebra book, history book, American history, world history, civics, physics. There's a physics book called The Science Before Science by Dr. Anthony Rizzi. It's like physics that anybody can understand. There are all of these things that can make you into a much more informed person. And we're all guilty of it, present company included. We all could know more. And a half an hour a day is a very small investment. And I guarantee you, if you do that for 1 year, people who know you, who haven't seen you for a while, they'll say, whoa, what happened to you? How did you get so smart? Did you go off and get a PhD while I wasn't watching? They will not be able to believe how smart you are. But here's the key. Knowledge is a formidable foe for falsehood and a formidable ally for truth. And that's why our founders said that about having an educated and informed populace. But there was a time when we had that in this nation, believe it or not. When Alexis de Tocqueville came here in 1831 to study America because the Europeans could not believe what they were seeing. They thought that we were doomed to fail. And here we were, a fledgling nation barely 50 years old, already competing with them on virtually every level. That's not possible. So de Tocqueville was going to come over here and see what this was all about. And he came over, he looked at our system of government, was duly impressed, particularly with our separation of powers and with the efficiency of our government. Now that was years ago. And then he said, well, let me look at the educational system And that really blew him away. Anybody finishing the second grade completely literate, he could find a mountain man, a beaver trapper on the outskirts of society, and the guy could read the newspaper, could tell him how the government worked, could have a sophisticated conversation. Only the aristocracy in Europe could do that. And when you stop and think about it, that's one of the reasons that our country flourished and rose so quickly, because we had an educated populace. We had people who knew how to do things, how to build roads, how to build structurally sound bridges, containment facilities, dams, how to invent things when a problem came up so that it could be solved. That's the kind of thing that propelled us so quickly to the pinnacle of the world. Have you ever looked at some of the prose and the letters from the frontier? Look at the way those people were able to write. You would think it was an English professor. They learned. And these are things that can easily be acquired once again in this nation, making us very knowledgeable. In our book, America the Beautiful, if you look in the education chapter, we extracted questions from a middle school exit exam from the early to mid 1800s. What you had to know to get a middle school certificate. And I think you will quickly see as you read those questions that most college graduates today could not pass that exam. We have dumbed things down to that level. So what I'm talking about here is a very serious issue. It goes to the heart of whether this nation survives as a pinnacle nation or just becomes a very ordinary group of people. But that decision lies with us. Well, you know, it was something that my mother fully understood, even though she had only a third grade education. And she prayed and she asked God to give her wisdom. What could she do to get her young sons to understand the importance of developing themselves intellectually? Because she was convinced that that was the ticket. That was the way out of a life of poverty to a life of fulfillment and empowerment. And she was convinced that it didn't matter what anybody else said or did if you empowered yourself through education. So after praying for wisdom, she came home one day and turned off the TV set. And she said, with all your spare time, you're going to read 2 books apiece from the Detroit Public Libraries every week and submit to me written book reports, which she couldn't read, but we didn't know that. And she would put check marks and highlights and underlines, and we would think she was reading them, but she wasn't. And I was not a happy camper. You know, everybody else was outside having fun. My mother's friends would criticize her. They would say, you can't make boys stay in the house reading books. They'll grow up and they'll hate you. And I would overhear them and I would say, Mother, you know they're right. But, you know, it didn't matter. You know, we still had to read the books. And some people say, well, why did you read the books? Your mother was always out working. She wouldn't have known. Yes, she would have. She would have absolutely known. And in those days, you had to do what your parents told you anyway. There was no social psychologist saying, let the kid express themselves. So, you know, there I was. Your expression was being obedient. And, but interestingly enough, as I started reading, I started knowing stuff. All of a sudden, the teacher would be asking questions, and instead of just the smart kids knowing the answer, I knew them too. And I started thinking, you know, maybe you're smart too. And it encouraged me to read more. Now my mother didn't have to make me read. I was reading anytime I had 5 minutes. Waiting for the bus, reading a book. On the bus, reading a book. In the bathroom, reading a book. At the dinner table. My mother would say, Benjamin, put the book down and eat your food. It didn't matter. I was always reading. And within the space of a year and a half, I went from the bottom of the class to the top of the class, much to the consternation of all those students who used to call me names, who are now coming to me saying, Benny, how do you work this problem? And I'd say, sit at my feet, youngster, while I instruct you. I was perhaps a little obnoxious, but it sure felt good to say that to those turkeys. But I just had a very different impression of who I was. And I can tell you, as a neuroscientist, that the human brain is the most fabulous organ system in the universe. Billions and billions of neurons, hundreds of billions of interconnections, remembers everything you've ever seen, everything you've ever heard, can process more than 2 million bits of information per second. Some people say, don't learn this or that, you'll overload your brain. You can't overload the brain. If you learned a new fact every second, which is impossible, but if you did, it would take you 3 million years to begin to challenge the capacity of your brain. So you shouldn't worry about that. How many people remember your birthday? Let me just see your hand. Okay. How many of you guys remember your birthday? Somebody's been smoking marijuana. Okay. Now, what does your brain have to do in order to respond to that question? I'll give you an example of how sophisticated your brain is. Well, first of all, the sound waves have to leave my lips, travel through the air, enter your external auditory meatus, travel down to your tympanic membrane, set up a vibratory force in the ossicles of the middle ear, going to the oval and round window, some vibratory force in the end of the lymph, mechanically distorting the microcilia, converting mechanical energy to electrical energy, which travel across the cochlear nerve to the cochlear nucleus at the pontomedullary junction, from there to the superior olivary nucleus, ascending bilaterally up the brainstem, to the lateral meniscus and the inferior colliculus, to the medial genicular body, across the thalamic radiations to the posterior temporal lobes to begin the auditory processing, with there to the frontal lobes, coming down the tract victor jury, retrieving the memory from the medial hippocampal, striking the mammary bodies back to the frontal lobes to start the motor response at the belt cell level, coming down the cortical spinal tract, across the internal capsule, into the cerebral peduncle, descending down to the cervical medullary decussation, into the spinal cord, gray matter synapsing there, going out to the neuromuscular junction, stimulating the nerve and the muscle. So you could raise your hand. And that is the simplified version of what your brain has to do. You know? Now, let's see how many rap singers can do that. But, but if your brain can do all that and you barely even have to think about it, can you imagine what the brain is capable of when we actually put our minds to something? And you see, that's what we Americans have to do now to solve the problems that are facing us. And we have to solve these problems together. The problems that we face are not Democrat problems or Republican problems. There are problems that are just threatening to destroy us all. $17.5 trillion national debt. Can you even fathom what that means? If you tried to pay that back at a rate of $10 million a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, it would take 4,700 years. I mean, that is a staggering amount of money. Why can we sustain a debt of that nature? There's only one reason. It's because the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. The monetary system based on our dollar gives us and us alone the ability to print money. If Greece could print money, they wouldn't be in trouble. Or at least they wouldn't know they were in trouble. They would be in trouble, they just wouldn't know it. Just like we are in trouble And we don't actually realize it. And we continue to push the debt higher and higher. We continue to borrow. Nations like China continue to buy our treasury securities, which in effect is loaning us money. Now, what happens if next week they say, you know what, those Americans are very irresponsible. They show no signs whatsoever of ever paying this money back, of ever getting their fiscal house together. I think we're just going to stop participating with them. Can you imagine the kinds of things that would happen? And then as other nations started jumping on that bandwagon, and what if all of a sudden we were not the reserve currency of the world? With that level of debt, not to mention the $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities, we would be a third world nation overnight. Everything that everybody's worked for, problematic, overnight. Occupy Wall Street, be a walk in the park compared to what you'd see going on. We're just not that far from it. If you look at all the nations that have failed before, historically, they never saw it coming. There are a few voices who talked about it, but they never thought it would happen. You know, in the 17th century, the Spanish didn't realize what was happening to them. The French didn't realize it in the 18th century. We have all these examples before us. We look at the Roman Empire. They were in the same situation that we are in. Pinnacle nation, no competition, nobody able to challenge them. What did they do? They destroyed themselves from inside with their fiscal irresponsibility. It can easily occur. And that's why we, the people, must take control. You see, the people that we continue to send back to our Congress to represent us don't get it. And you see them continuing to vote to push the debt ceiling higher and higher, to borrow more and more, to create government programs, to grow a government that's bigger and bigger, that requires more and more resources, that infringes upon the liberty of the people. But you say, what can we do about it? This is not the first time that we've been in this situation. We were in this situation hundreds of years ago, before the American Revolution. The people were in the exact same situation, being oppressed, being taken advantage of. They didn't like it. What did they do? They started talking to each other. They would have town hall meetings. They would meet in the barns. They would meet in the living rooms. And they would talk about the kind of government that they wanted to have and what were they willing to do in order to have that government. Wasn't an issue that was in one party or the other. It was an issue where people began to recognize that their way of life, the freedom that they desired, was being elusive, and that they were going to have to do something themselves to achieve it, and they encouraged each other. And that's how a bunch of ragtag militiamen were able to defeat the largest empire and the most powerful empire on earth, by gaining courage. And it's what we must again do. We must begin to talk to each other. Everybody in this room has a sphere of influence. Family, friends, extended family, co-workers, church members. Begin to get together in groups of 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 and talk about the kind of nation that you want to pass on to the next generation. Are you willing to fight for them? Ask yourself that question. Or do we just want what we can get out of the situation? That question will determine the course of action in our nation. And I think we will make the right decision. But when you have those meetings, assign 1 or 2 people to find out who your representatives are in Washington. Make sure you know their names. Assign somebody to find out how they voted. Not on how they said they voted, but on how they actually voted. Is it consistent with your values? And if you discover that they are people who have voted to give away your rights and to create an enlarging central government, if they are people who have voted to keep raising the debt ceiling and to sell the future of your children and grandchildren, then you need to vote them out of office. That's all there is to it. It is up to you. It is up to us, the American people. Our system was designed to put us at the pinnacle of power for a reason. And that is, if we want to move in a different direction, we have to exercise that power in an intelligent fashion. And it, again, is not a political thing. It doesn't matter if the people who are selling your rights, the people who are selling the future of your kids, I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans, whoever they are, they need to be replaced with people who actually understand these things. And our future is in our own hands. But it does require courage. It requires wisdom. You know, you can't have this my way or the highway attitude like some people have. You know, if their candidate doesn't win, they take their marbles and go home. I don't want to vote for anybody. That doesn't make any sense. And think about this. In the last presidential election, more people did not vote than voted for either candidate. That's a lot of people, tens of millions of people who need to be reactivated. How do they get reactivated? You. Everybody here has sphere of influence. You all have an 87-year-old aunt or cousin who hasn't voted in 20 years, who might be a partial invalid. Go and talk to her. If she needs an absentee ballot, help her arrange for it. If she's partially blind, help her fill it in. Millions and millions and millions of people out there who can be brought back into the fold. Some of whom have given up. I can't tell you how many elderly people I've encountered who said, I was just waiting to die. I gave up on this nation a long time ago. We need to bring those people back into the fold. They're a very important part of who this nation is. But think about it. How did we get to be a nation that was so powerful and that was so free? Because there were people who had courage. Nathan Hale, a teenage rebel, captured by the British as a spy, ready to be executed. What did he say? He says, my only regret is that I have but one life to give for my nation. Think about that. Courage. Give me liberty or give me death, said Patrick Henry 239 years ago. Means that people were willing to step out there. They were willing to put themselves and their lives on the line. Many people have said to me, why do you come out and speak out with courage about these things when you know that many people will hate you? Because it's not about me. It's not about what people think about me. It's about our nation. It's about what people think about our nation. It's about the young people who are following us. It's about our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And it's even about the world. Because if this nation falls from the pinnacle of the world, it will be replaced by someone else. And your evaluation of history tell you that the likelihood of whoever replaces us being as benign as we are is incredibly small. And the nature of the world will change in a dramatic and draconian way. That's why I'm willing to get out there and oppose the Affordable Care Act. And I know that that irritates a lot of people, but it's because I understand that once you take the most important thing you have and you turn it over to the government, everything else will follow. That has been a historical fact. If you look back through many nations who went from free societies to communist societies. And you say, that can't happen in America. But it can. But I don't like to just complain about it. I like to have solutions. And I think we could have an excellent healthcare system in this country if we learn how to work together. I remember talking to a senior administration official before the Affordable Care Act was passed, and I said, it has a lot of things in it that I think are great. I think everybody would agree on these things. Why don't we take those things that everybody agrees on and make that the foundation of the new health care plan and then build it together? I said, because if you jam it through with just one party, with unanimous opposition from the other side, all you're going to do is create animosity for years to come. You're going to lose the House, you may lose the Senate. And this person said to me, you're probably right. But this is Washington, and this is politics. And you see, that's the problem. When we take something as important as healthcare and make it into a political football, this is the situation that we have. And this is not what the intention was of the way that our nation was put together. And the ideal situation puts your healthcare in your own hands. It's not that we don't spend enough money. We spend twice as much per capita on healthcare as the next closest nation. So the will to take care of it is there. The money to take care of it is there. Efficiency is our problem. A lot of efficiency can be gained with the use of electronic medical records that store all of your data, all of your test results, all of your scans, everything on a microchip, which stays in your possession, not in cyberspace. And that way you're out in Vail, Colorado skiing, and you fall and you break your ankle, and they take you to the hospital, In goes your card into the reader. All the information available, allergies, medications. Maybe there's a spot on your chest x-ray. They can look at the old ones and say, oh, that was there before. Incredible amount of savings, an incredible increase in safety. Very easy to do that. Give everybody a healthcare savings account. All 315 million Americans. $2,000 a year. That would cost the government $630 billion. Sounds like a lot of money. It's about a fifth of what we spend on healthcare. And everyone would immediately have coverage. A third of it has to be designated for catastrophic healthcare, but it's cumulative. So if it's not used, it continues to roll over instead of resetting to zero each year. The cost of the catastrophic insurance will plummet. Why? Because you have your HSA to take care of all your routine things. You sprain your ankle, need an x-ray, that comes out of your HSA. You need a physical exam for a new job, that comes out of your HSA. You need birth control pills, that comes out of your HSA. No Hobby Lobby stuff. And you think about everything's coming out of your HSA, you're not impinging upon your catastrophic or bridge insurance. The cost of it plummets. It's sort of like a homeowner's insurance policy that has a very, very high deductible. You also give families the ability to shift money within their HSA. So let's say the dad is $500 short. His wife can shift it to him out of hers, or his daughter, or his grandfather. Makes every family their own insurance company with no middleman. Gives you enormous flexibility. Think about that. You would also encourage employers to do matching contributions. And if you ask an employer just to give a couple of $1,000s, they're going to say, oh, no problem. Compared to what they have to give now, those of you who run companies know what I'm talking about. That'd be like incredible. And then you can hire people, and we can get the economy moving. And you can contribute to the HSA from a whole variety of different ways. You also give people the ability to refuse the $2,000, because a lot of us don't need $2,000, quite frankly, and put it back in the pot to be used by people who do need it. And that's a very easy way to do things. And if you don't use it, you don't lose it. It just continues to accumulate. Young people, babies, get it the day that they were born. And it continues to accumulate. The vast majority of those people are not going to be having any problems well into adulthood. That money's just accumulating. And there's a way to utilize that in a very sophisticated way to grow a very substantial pot. And money is then able to be transferred to your family members when you die. So the 91-year-old who has 18 different diseases is not trying to use it all up when they know they can pass it on to their daughter or their grandson. The most important thing is people are in control of their own finances. They're going to be very interested in how good is this hospital? How good is this doctor? What are their records? Things are going to become very transparent. You're going to know, what is the price of this? It's going to bring the whole healthcare system into the free market economy model. That's where efficiency, effectiveness, pricing, all come under control. When you put it in the hands of a bunch of faceless bureaucrats, of course, you get the kind of mess that we have now. And then, of course, you have to have tort reform. You know, we're the only country in the world that has this problem with medical malpractice. Do we have all the bad doctors? I don't think so. What we do have is a trial lawyers association. which is one of the most powerful lobbies in Washington, D.C. And Howard Dean, I was at a public forum, and he was one of the speakers, and he was asked, why is there no tort reform in the Affordable Care Act? And I don't agree with much of what Howard Dean has to say, but he is a very honest guy. And he said, the Trial Lawyers Association gives us a lot of money, and they don't want it in there. As simple as that. Of course, we knew that already, but to hear him actually admit it was pretty refreshing. But, you know, we have way too many special interest groups. And anything that comes out of Washington, D.C. that doesn't make sense, I can guarantee you there's a special interest group behind it. And we really need to do something about that. But we've got to get the right people in office who understand how tenuous our position is right now. And I believe that this is something that is eminently possible. I think we also have to stop being afraid of our Judeo-Christian heritage. People are afraid now to talk about God. I remember some years ago, lawyers came to my wife and me and they said, you can't put your Think Big banners up in my public school. Each of the letters means something special. The T for talent, the H for honesty, the I for insight, the N for nice, the K for knowledge, the B for books, the second I for in-depth knowledge, and the G for God. That was the problem. They said, First Amendment, you're violating it. It says that you can have no government support of religious expression. I reminded them that it also says you can have no government suppression of religious expression. So we had a rather vigorous argument. I suggested that we resolve it at the level of the Supreme Court. Seems like a bold and reckless statement, but it really wasn't, because I knew that the very next week I was going to the Supreme Court to receive the Jefferson Award. So I figured I would ask while I was there, and I did, and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said they were all wet, that of course that was no violation of the separation clause. And the problem is that we too easily capitulate when somebody says, you can't do that, you can't put that up, you can't say that. Says who? This is the United States of America. We have to take our rights back. We can't allow people to keep pushing us around. That's important. So it really means that it's up to us to control where our nation goes. This nation was designed for, of, and by the people. It was not for, of, and by the government. And Thomas Jefferson said, when the government fears the people, you have liberty. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Right now, we're in a situation where a lot of people are afraid of the government. It needs to be exactly the other way around. And that's where our courage comes in. You think about World War II. Think about D-Day at Normandy. Our troops storming the beach, being mowed down by machine gun fire, hundreds of them, thousands of them. It looked impossible. But did our people give up? No, they stepped over the bodies of their dead comrades and they overwhelmed the Axis forces. Why did they do that? Why were they willing to give their lives? They did it for us. They did it so that we could be free. Empires and nations falling like dominoes one by one during World War II, before tyrannical Axis powers. And the only thing that prevented worldwide domination was this nation, the United States of America, a nation that sent its young men from the cities, the suburbs, the country to fight a war on two fronts of the world. A nation that sent its young women into the factories to build more airplanes, tanks, and mortars than anyone could imagine. Much of that done right here in York, PA. A nation that through its strength, its determination, and its courage changed the course of the world. And you tell that to people when they tell you that this is not an exceptional nation, because it is an exceptional nation and it changed the course of the world. And we need to keep it an exceptional nation. And it can only be an exceptional nation if we are exceptional people. And if we are willing to think about others and not just of what affects us. And you think about the War of 1812. The British had decided that those young American whippersnappers were no longer deserving of their freedom. They were going to recolonize us. And they were winning that war, marching up the eastern seaboard, taking city after city, burned down the White House. Next stop, final bastion, Fort McHenry in Chesapeake Harbor. They rolled up all those battleships into the Chesapeake Bay. General Armistead, who was in charge of Fort McHenry, had a large American flag built to fly in front of the fort. And the British admiral was incensed. He said, "We control this area. That offends me. Take that flag down. You have until dusk. And if you don't take it down, we will reduce you to ashes." There was a young amateur American poet by the name of Francis Scott Key on board. He overheard the British plans. They wouldn't let him off the ship. His heart ached as the sun fell that evening. And the flag was still up there because he knew what awaited. And as dark hit, the bombardment started. Missiles, cannons, bombs bursting in air. It looked like the 4th of July all night long. He strained his eyes to see if he could see if the fort was there, but he couldn't see anything. At the crack of dawn, he went out to the banister. He looked, he strained his eyes, but there was so much dust and so much debris. And his heart sank as he realized what had happened. And then there was a clearing in the debris. And he beheld the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. It was the torn and tattered stars and stripes still flying. And many historians say that that was the beginning of the reversal of the trend in that war. And we went on to win that war. And if you had gone into the grounds of Fort McHenry that night or that day, you would have seen at the base of that flag the bodies of young American soldiers who had taken turns holding up the flag. They would not allow the flag to go down. Freedom meant that much for them. And when you sing the national anthem the next time, and you get to the end of that first stanza, and it says, "The land of the free and the home of the brave." Don't just let those words roll off your tongue without contemplation, but recognize that it is impossible to be free if you're not brave. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Determined leadership. That's what this man stands for. And I'm sure we all have a lot of questions, but it's getting late in the evening. On behalf of the Manufacturers Association, Dr. Carson, it's been an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That concludes the program this evening. Again, thank you for joining us and travel safely home. God bless.